always found it fascinating that this story has endured like centuries. You know, in Hollywood sometimes we're looking for a good script, but this is something that's been going on for like 600 years.
1400 years.
1400 years.
Since I think the first telling of the Arthurian legend. Yeah.
And what makes it so enduring in your book? You know, so fascinating to audiences all over the world. What element of the story is it? Is it the element of power and ego that you mentioned a bit earlier, or something more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately it's because it's within the narrative. The essence of the story is exploring the greater questions of life. I mean, basically what it's all about and how we become the greatest versions of ourselves. That's the worst versions of ourselves, exactly. And in the never-ending conflict between fear and faith that we all are embroiled in every day, whether we recognize it or contextualize it in that specific vocabulary or not. There's a version of that inherent in our daily struggle. So, but you know, at the center of it also, it's just a wonderful, rich story. I mean, it's the same story as Luke Skywalker, you know, in Star Wars, or any of the 1,000 comparisons you can make that are all actually influenced by this ancient narrative. So, you know, we only tell the first chapter of that story in King Arthur Legend of the Sword. One of the big challenges historically always has been how you distill this long Odyssey-esque sweeping adventure down to 2 hours and to do it justice, which has always been an enormous challenge, and people have become unstuck in their attempt to do that in the past. And I think Guy recognized that early on and wanted to avoid the potential calamity of that. So we only tell the first chapter of it, which is really distilled down to the hero's journey of man in his regular life, presented with this grand destiny which seems like an insurmountable challenge, becomes petrified by the prospect of that, gets convinced that denying one's destiny is not acceptable, and accepts it and goes on the journey, and then through that realizes that the way we define ourselves is all just an illusion, that actually anybody is capable of anything. And I think for me that is such a beautiful, rich message in the film, and why the Arthurian legend is so inspiring, because you know, it's true, anybody is capable of anything. You just have to know that there's going to be an enormous amount of heartache and failure along the way, but you get knocked down 5 times, got to get up 6.
Absolutely.
Keep on swinging the sword.
I keep going back to Luke Skywalker. So when you were a kid, were you thinking of Excalibur or a lightsaber? You inspired my next question.
Both, but more Excalibur.
Yeah.
I became obsessed with John Borman's Excalibur, which came out in 1981, and I think that I probably came around 1986, 1987, when I was 6 or 7, was introduced to that film, and as many kids do, just became obsessed with it and watched it over and over and over again. And that was the first time that I can ever recall looking past being told a story and becoming interested in actually the logistics of filmmaking and how the process works. And so that was the first, as far as I remember, what really got me interested in the idea of spending a life trying to tell stories.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a metaphor in here, kind of, you know, you kind of know that you're an actor from early on. Something along the way gives you a little bit of that hint, a metaphoric
exactly.
Excalibur.
Yeah, no, it was literally and metaphorically, Excalibur.
Yeah. It was that. So when you were offered the role, did you see that as an opportunity, as a turning point for you in your career, something that was going to take it in a different direction?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my journey and my hope has always been that I would grow with every experience, and that every performance be better than the last. And a huge part of that, obviously, as an actor, is being judicious and careful about the directors that one chooses to work with, because as an actor, you have very little input actually into the overall filmmaking process. You have a certain level of autonomy in how you interpret and bring a character to life, but then there's an enormous amount of work that goes around that, and decisions that are made after your participation that will really define how the character appears on screen. So you have to be very careful. And the journey that I've been on is to become worthy to work with the directors that are working at the highest level. And so it certainly was a moment where I felt like I had ascended one more rung on the ladder, getting to work with Guy Ritchie, for sure, because he was somebody that I'd admired and wanted to work with for many, many years.